Hi, this is Philip Martin, and this is our third video on film. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? We'll probably keep doing this even after we go back to work, which now looks like it may be, I don't know, May 18th. Most of us, or some of us, are going back to work. Um, we'll have to wait and see what the governor says. Um, it's not going to be May 18th when the movies go back online, though. I hope you understand that because even though movie theaters probably will be able to open about the same time restaurants do, there's actually no guidelines for the state hasn't issued any guidelines for movie theaters. It didn't even tell them they had to close. The big chains, AMC, and those guys, they closed, and they closed nationally, and they're not going to reopen until at least the middle of July. Um, Riverdale, which is locally owned, will likely open as soon as it can, though there's going to be a real problem with getting new product. They're going to be able to play classic movies. They're going to probably have the movies that they were playing when they shut down. They'll probably keep those, and there may be a couple of things that come in from independent houses like IFC. I know Film Movement's made some films available, but you're not going to have a summer movie season because no big studio is going to release any big movies until all the theaters are open, until the big chains are open. And the big chains are not going to open nationally until they're open in New York and Los Angeles. So we could be quite a ways away from having new big budget Hollywood movies coming to play in theaters in Arkansas. And that has nothing to do with whether we open or not. It has to do with what's going on in the corporate rooms of the in the boardrooms and stuff like that, and in the state governments of New York and California. So just hunker down, bear with us. There's be plenty of content. It's not going to be the sort of content that some of you guys are longing for. Not the big superhero things, not the real tent pole type movies, but we're still going to have a steady stream of smaller kind of independent movies that are going to be either moving on to video on demand streaming platforms, or they will show up at Riverdale, which will probably be the only theater open for at least a month. And we'll keep covering it. I mean, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing and keep writing about that stuff. But it's it's an interesting dynamic, and it's changing all the time, and we're trying to keep up. There may be things we miss, like when the opening date of the movie gets shifted from a Friday to a Monday after we've already made our section. That's something that's beyond our control. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about last week on page 2, which is normally, in normal times, what we do with page 2 in our movie section is that we reserve that for box office, because some people follow the box office like they follow sports scores. Okay? People are interested in that. So I'm not particularly interested. Maybe you're not, but some people are interested. But in the current environment, we don't have any box office, not any meaningful box office. I mean, there are drive-ins out there that are playing, and people are showing movies on the back of their building to people who drive up and stuff. But there's no real box office stuff going on right now. Everything's shut down. So we're not running box office reports, so we have to put something on there. And because the realities of the newspaper, the logistics of it are such that we have to get that page 2 done pretty quickly before we get the rest of this section done. And so what we've been doing is we don't run much wire in this section, but there's always one or two good wire stories that I kind of want to run, and usually they come with photos, and usually they're just like a plug and play thing. Last week, what we did was we took the Associated Press's story about they had a vote for the top 25, sports movies of all time. Okay. Um, it's a reasonable thing to do. It's kind of a fun thing to talk about when a time when you have no sports and you really have no new movies. And I don't know what their methodology was. Let's see. Who'd they poll? 70-person global panel of sports writers and editors who work for AP. So these are not movie guys or girls. These are sports guys. Now, some of you may know I have sort of had a hand in the sports. I started out as a sports writer. I still write a lot about sports. I still follow sports. So I can maybe comment on this too. They did not poll me. I'm not one of their guys. So anyway, so this is, what they... And there are only 46 people who they asked to return their ballots. That means that 34... 34? Wait a minute. 24 didn't vote. Okay, which seems strange. I would know if they sent me, my boss sent me a ballot, I would fill it out, but okay, I didn't. Anyway, we're just the number one movie, Hoosiers. Okay, and it won by one vote over Bull Durham. Rocky was also tied for second. Caddyshack was third. Slapshot, wonderful 1977 movie, Paul Newman, fourth. Ogie Oglethorpe was not a real guy, but he was based on a real guy, Goldie Goldthorpe, and he was played by Ned Dowd, who was a minor league hockey player, who became first an actor and then a producer. And I think Ned Dowd was actually the sister of the screenwriter of Slapshot. Okay, Field of Dreams, the highest ranking Kevin Costner product on here. And number 7 is Raging Bull. Number 8 is Major League. Tied for number 8 is The Natural. Number 10 would be League of Their Own, and then you get to Moneyball, Bad News Bears, blah, 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 boom, on down. Okay. This is fine. I don't have any problems with this list. I mean, it's not my list. My list, if I was going to talk about... There's two ways I would look at it. I would look at the best movies that have to do with sports. Best movies that have to do with sports. They're sports adjacent, but just from their value as cinematic products. Raging Bull's got to be number 1. Probably the doc, When We Were Kings, about Muhammad Ali and George Foreman's fight. I put Bull Durham up there. I really like all the Ron Shelton, who was a minor league second baseman and worked for New Times. He was like me, a New Times alum. I like all his movies, all his sports movies, which include White Men Can't Jump. Let's see. I don't have like I said, Caddyshack is probably not a great movie by a lot of criteria, but a lot of people really love it. It's very quotable. It's not a great golf movie, I don't think. It's funny because, sort of like I think about these things. And what takes me out of a sports movie is really when the actors are incompetent at doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. And most of us, almost all of us, would be incompetent if we were called on to play, world-class athletes. I played baseball, but I probably wouldn't look all that great if you put me in a film where I'm supposed to be, playing Hank Greenberg or Mickey Mantle or somebody like that. Costner's one of those guys who really looked pretty good. He looked really good in Bull Durham, and then he looked good in, what was the movie where he pitched the perfect game? He looked pretty good in that. I don't believe he was throwing as hard as he said he was throwing. I think he said he was throwing in the 80s, and I really think that there's a hump in that fastball that he throws in that film. But those are the sort of things that take me out. The 8-foot rims and White Men Can't Jump kind of bothered me, though I enjoyed the movie. But it's the problem with making a sports movie is that we as the audience generally know that it's got to have this sort of trajectory. It's got to be like this underdog story, and they've either got to overcome and win at the end, or score some sort of moral victory at the end. Which is one of the reasons I like films like Bull Durham, which are not so much about the game, but is about the characters in the game, and they pick up the details of the game in a fairly accurate, fairly enjoyable way. I don't like Rudy. I don't like Rudy. One of the reasons I don't like Rudy is because I just think it's a lie. I just don't think that the guy wasn't a hero. He was kind of a pest. All the Notre Dame players made fun of him, per Joe Montana. I don't think that that's an inspiring character. Okay, some people can disagree with that, but I'm not, that whole live your dream and, be obnoxious about it sort of thing doesn't work for me. And Rudy is number 18 here, tied with Seabiscuit. A lot of ties in this. Well, I guess if you only have 46 people voting, you're going to get that. The Sandlot, yeah. Friday Night Lights deserves to be a lot higher. That's tied for number 24, and so does Brian's. I'm surprised that Brian's song is so low in this poll, except when you think that it's almost a 50-year-old movie now. And for someone like me, Brian's song was one of those films of your early adolescence or your childhood. But we have several generations who've probably never seen it. It was a TV movie to begin with. But James Caan and Billy D. Williams, they were great in that. Chariots of Fire is not one of my favorite films. Number 15 is Eight Men Out, which is a very good John Sayles movie about the things that John Sayles movies are about, which means it's about economics and power dynamics. Hoop Dreams is a wonderful documentary which features these kids from Chicago, one of whom, Arthur Agee, came down here and played at Arkansas State University. That would certainly be in my personal list of top 10 sports films, as would this film by Anna Boden and Ryan, what's his name? Sugar. See, so I need to look these things up. Sugar, let's see. Sugar came out when? It was, Ryan Fleck. Sugar came out in 2008, and it was a story about a minor league baseball player, a guy who came from the Dominican Republic, I believe. And it was about how those minor leaguers come to the U.S. and they send all their money home, and they live in these really weird, kind of cloistered environments with no money as a minor leaguer. And it's fantastic. I don't think a whole lot of people saw that film, but again, it's not about who's going to win the big game and who's going to triumph over these obstacles. I think at the end of Sugar, spoiler alert, that basically the guy figures out that it's not worth it to try to chase his major league dream in the U.S. So there you go. So, if you're going to watch a sports movie and you're like me and you're not sold on the whole, underdog overcoming, Rocky, I'll tell you though, Rocky in 1976 when it came out, I think the first realization I have of it, the first time I noticed it was like in an ad in the Village Voice. And Rocky was like a little art house film. It was like Sylvester Stallone wrote, directed, starred in it. It was his film. And it was sort of this art house take on this old-fashioned boxing movie. And, it's been remade. Every time they make a Rocky movie, it's basically a remake of the original. But, it's a sturdy movie. It holds up. Creed, I thought, did all right. With that sort of thing. But basically those things kind of, for me, they kind of bore me. If they don't bore you, Your results may vary. Objects in the mirror may be closer than they appear. Anyway, that's about all I'm going to do this week because we want this to upload to YouTube without any problem. So take care, and we'll see you next week with we'll see you in the Friday paper. Bye.